But if we just focus on kitchen table issues, we're kind of missing that their whole economic argument is very much steeped in these culture issues.
Welcome to the Practivist Pod, the practice of activism made practical.
Today, as the Trump regime ramps up National Guard deployments in American cities, we are actually talking about Democratic wins, both electorally and in messaging.
Then we have a great conversation with the founder and chief strategy officer of Way to Win and host of Charting the Way Forward, Jenifer Fernandez Ancona. I'm Jessica Creighton.
I'm Steve Pearson.
Steve.
Hold on. Stay strong. It won't be long. Yeah, yeah. We will build a better world.
My God, every week is 1,000 years.
It's
Really?
never, hi, Steve. It's always,
No.
Steve.
Yeah,
That's
I
how
know.
we
It's so
start.
true. It's really sad, isn't it? It is a grind. It's a grind. I write this newsletter and I have to write like a pep talk every day, or I don't have to. I choose to, but I realized every day I'm starting with some variation on just like, oh my God. It's just, I'm trying to be upbeat, but you also have to acknowledge that this is just exhausting. It's exhausting, right? Are we exhausted
It
yet?
is. Yes, I'm exhausted. Still trying to kick my COVID, which has been lingering, so I'm a little foggy. If I stray during this podcast, forgive me, it's my COVID brain. But,
Right.
Last week, if anyone didn't hear our episode last week with Robert Hubble and what we were talking about, I've been thinking about it a lot because we really talked a lot about kind of resilience in this, like how
Right.
we deal with this and what we pay attention to and how we focus on the things that we can control and
Right.
try not to go crazy over the things that we can't control. And it's really important. I've been thinking about it all week long. And as we are hit with this onslaught of things that is every week of the Trump regime, I think, and hopefully we do this on our show, it's good to stay focused on what's our role, what can we do, because there's a lot that we can do. And we're going to talk about how, all of these Democratic wins that we're actually having right now because of public sentiment, because of people using their voices, whether it's with their friends and neighbors or on social media or out in the street. It's really working. There's a lot that we can do and there's a lot to be hopeful about. And it's easy to get overwhelmed with the things that are out of our control. So, that's like life's work kind of stuff, finding that balance, trying to, parse that out. And some days I'm better at it than others.
Right. Yeah.
But anyway, if you have, and Robert Hubble has great perspective, as you know, on that too. So if you didn't hear last week's episode, please check that out. We put it up for free on Substack. What a great segue to remind people that we're on Substack. And if you're able to subscribe to us and support our show there, it's very, very helpful. We'd appreciate it. But last week's episode was free for everyone because why not? Everyone needed to hear it.
Yeah. And while you're there, you can subscribe to Robert Hubble too, because he's on Substack as well. And he really is great. I mean, we say this all the time, but the importance of seeking out news sources who are both accurate, measured, and try to filter things through a lens of hope and encouragement and historical context, hugely important. And for me, the difference between surviving this era and losing my mind. Like, I read Robert every single day. It's where I get a large part of where I get my news. Obviously, I have lots of sources, but sort of recap of what happened yesterday. And he always goes back to, like, what are activists doing? What are organizers doing? Where are we succeeding? Where is Trump showing weakness? And those things are real. And it's really important that we talk about them, because otherwise we are obeying in advance by only focusing on, like, where Trump is doing the wrong thing and where it's scary and hard, which is many, many places. But there's also all of these incredible groups and individuals pushing back. And we need to focus on that. It's a matter of survival.
Yeah. And when we talk about how we win democratic messaging to going forward and what the next steps are, there's actually no one better to talk to than Jenifer Fernandez Ancona, who is the leader of Way to Win. And, our friend who happened to co-host How We Win, there was a time when the three of us were all co-hosting How We Win together. So I'm really excited to catch up with my old friend, but also she's been doing, as she always is, some really cutting edge messaging work. And they just had a conference in DC that we're going to discuss. So that's going to be a really great interview as well. So don't go back and listen to last week's episode if you haven't heard it yet. Finish this one first, then go back, have a snack. Just do it all. But let's talk about what's happening this week. And like I said, there's some winning. You want to start with the messaging around the shutdown. We are still in a government shutdown. Congress has not reconvened. I wonder why that is. Yeah, I do want to talk about it. And it ties right into what you were talking about with Jenifer and the messaging work that she does. But we have heard for years and years, Democrats suck on messaging, and they fail at messaging, and there's no infrastructure like the right wing has, and there's no, they just, all of them have bigger platforms, whatever. We all know what everybody has said. And what has really heartened me, and particularly as a content creator who is also trying to help with this messaging, this shutdown fight has been really encouraging. Setting aside for a moment the fact that it's just brutal to watch Republicans try to deny people funding desperately needed to pay for their health care. That part is brutal. Setting that aside for 1 second, we'll talk about that in a sec. Democrats, the left, everybody who's anti-MAGA, let's just put them in that giant category, are all on the same page messaging-wise. And as I said not to name drop here, but I interviewed Elizabeth Warren yesterday, and what I was saying was... I know, I'm so jealous. I know. Look, man. She was, I'm saying it, she was my candidate. I wanted her to be president. Mine too. But it is a dream, and I didn't even have the time to fawn over her the way I wanted to, so I can fawn over her now. But... What I was saying to her, it's not that our message is winning or that our propaganda is winning. It's that the truth is louder than the lies right now. For the first time in a major fight that I can remember, that Republicans decided to go with and I use this phrase with heavy quotation marks because obviously it's a horrible phrase, but the illegals, this is about giving illegals free health care, right? And when I heard that argument, my stomach sank a little bit because they do that and they generally succeed. I thought, okay, this is what they're going to go with and they're probably going to succeed, but they're not. And that means the truth, which is, of course, as we all know, and if you don't, I'm going to tell you right now, that undocumented immigrants who come into the country, not with no official paperwork, they're not entitled to any federal health benefits, right? Except in 0.4%, less than 1% of the time when they go to an emergency room, and then that money goes to the hospital, so the hospital doesn't go broke. But the rest of the time, none. And that is a truth that is actually overcoming the lie. So it's actually been great because people are getting to learn about the truth about that. But more importantly, people are not being distracted by it, and they are understanding that the actual thing that is happening is that Republicans are wanting to cut off these funds so that tens of millions of Americans either lose their health insurance completely or it becomes unaffordable to the point where they have to choose between that and their rent. And that truth is winning the messaging battle. And I'm just thrilled by it. It's very exciting to see. It's so exciting to see. And, Mike Johnson had the gall to get up on a podium and say that Republicans were the ones that care about healthcare and are fighting for healthcare right when they slash funding for healthcare. It's hilarious. It's not hilarious. This is, as you said, people are really hurting from this. But just the hypocrisy is in full display and people aren't buying it. You look at all the polling around the shutdown and the blame is firmly where it should be with the Republicans, with the party that has the White House, the House of Representatives, the Senate, and SCOTUS, right?
Yeah.
And so it's been very encouraging to see exactly. I don't need to restate what you just said, but I'll just say, Republicans lie, and often people just believe it. And right now, I think maybe the groundwork has been laid because there's been so much doubt in MAGA world too, because of the Epstein files,
for sure.
and then the pushback on Jimmy Kimmel, and even immigration, where they're like, yeah, we need, they're drug dealers and violent criminals. Yeah, we got to get them out. And all of a sudden they see ICE rounding up, street vendors and workers at Home Depots and our neighbors at, working at a car wash. And they're like, well, these aren't the criminals I thought they were going to, so there's been, for the first time in this coalition of MAGA diehards, this questioning and this doubt that I've never seen before. And I think that's really seeping into, when Mike Johnson gets up there and says, we're championing healthcare. They're like, well, wait a minute. The bill just slashed Medicaid and Medicare, and my subsidies are going up. And by the way, when the re-enrollment period starts in just a few weeks, they're going to see, a massive increase in cost for the ACA as a result of this. So it's only going to get worse for Republicans. And, they ought to reconvene Congress. They ought to rethink this. But for some reason, Mike Johnson isn't letting Congress reconvene and isn't swearing in our newest Democratic Congress member.
Yeah.
Gee,
it's
I
just
wonder
wild.
why.
It's all, and I think you're so right. Like, it's all part of the same insane package of dysfunction that he won't swear in Adelita Grijalva. It's going on 3 weeks now. Like, this is kind of unprecedented. Usually it takes 24 or 48 hours. So that's happening. The bald-faced lies. And I don't think they serve themselves when they say something that is so laughable that even MAGA Republicans are like, okay, you guys are like, that's going a little too far, even for you, Mike Johnson. Speaking, let me just interject here. Like, I always say that Carolyn Levitt, she wears that little cross on her skin, that it must burn her a little bit every time she lies. Like, what? Mike Johnson, I've never seen, okay, this is saying a lot because we live in America with Republicans, but like, I've never seen someone lie so shamelessly who also claims to be a Christian. Like, it's shocking to me that man will stand there with a straight face and say, we're the party that is fighting for your health care. How does he... Is he wearing a hair shirt? Does he go home and whip himself with one of those things to punish himself for the sins he's committed? It's like, how?
Honestly,
how do you do it?
Honestly, this white nationalist Christian push, for power that Mike Johnson is, at the center of. I really believe those true believers who grew up inundated with propaganda, inundated with it. Like, a lot of these, were like homeschooled or in Christian schools that literally said Democrats are the devil and all that. Right. I believe that they just feel like the end justifies the means, that they can lie, they can cheat, they can do whatever they have to do to make this country into what they want it to be, which is a, Christo-fascist, autocracy. And actually, they probably don't want the autocracy part. That's not the plan, but that's what they're giving up all their power, and that's the monster that they've created. That's happening now. But
well, they want an oligarchy, so they want an autocracy as long as they are also get to be one of the autocrats. I mean, they want a group of wealthy white, cisgender men. Like, that's what they want. And it's truly remarkable to me. I mean, as someone who, we all have moral codes, but like, I'm not a very good liar. And when I lie, generally people can tell, like, I'm just not very good at it. And because I'm not comfortable doing it. So it's really, evident in my physique that I'm lying because it's like, ugh. Johnson, I wonder when they were doing that.
You can tell either you have to use the bathroom or you're lying. I can never figure out which it is. But.
Right, exactly. The twitching starts to happen. I wonder when they were doing the speaker, the last speaker elections, where he sort of felt like he got chosen after like 10 other alternatives had failed. But I wonder if actually all along it was like, make it look like we're really struggling to find someone, but in the end, get that Mike Johnson guy because he can lie like no one you've ever seen.
Interesting. Yeah.
Because I've never seen anyone, he is just smooth to his core. It is really, it's something. But anyway, yeah, we don't have to talk about him anymore.
Enough about Mike Johnson. Let's talk about Stephen Miller. No,
oh God, no. I don't want to talk about that guy. That guy really gives me nightmares. But what we should talk about is the fact that the latest talking point that I saw yesterday, because, you know, they've been cycling through all the different ways where they're really on the right side of this thing. Their latest thing is Democrats just need to reopen the government, and then they've got lots of time to negotiate because nothing really needs to happen until December 31st. This is their latest thing. Like, we've got months. And I actually asked Elizabeth Warren about this yesterday. Sorry to drop her name second time. But because I was like, she's like, no. Like, this is now. This has to happen now. There is a time limit on this because letters are going out. Plans are being formulated right now. And the thing is, people have the month of November to choose their plan. So what Republicans are asking people to do is choose their plan, not knowing whether or not they will have the subsidies. So not knowing whether or not their plan is going to cost them whatever, $1,000 a month or $2,500 a month, which may not seem like a big deal if you're a billionaire Republican, but obviously is a deal breaker for regular people. So it's just one lie after another. And the good news is they're not getting caught. The last thing I want to say about this is that even Chuck Schumer, who, you know, I am very critical of, he made a video this week that he released yesterday, and I have to say, it's good. He's finally getting it. You see his full body. Wait, what? Yes, it's true.
What did Jess Craven just say?
Well, I know. No, credit where credit's due. His office did it. They get him out. We were all joking about it this morning. You see his body, you see his legs. You're like, oh my God, he's got legs. He's out talking to regular people. He's got a whiteboard. I got to say, it's encouraging to see even the most sort of old school Democratic lawmakers, like, understanding the way videos work, the way Americans receive information, and using it to communicate to them in this really important moment. So credit where credit's due.
Love that. And yeah, you know, just to go full circle in us talking about messaging wins and the complaints about Democratic messaging. I've said this a million times. And of course, you know, we're in progressive media and I've been screaming this from the rooftops for a long time, but I don't really believe that we have a messaging problem. You know, it's great to have really strong messengers, and those are rare. You know, I mean, you only get a few Obamas, you know, and people that really can connect with people. But our policies are popular with you know, a large swath of Americans, the plurality of Americans, but it's the delivery system that we continue to struggle with. So I'm really happy to see that changing. I think it's going to make a big impact. So
100%.
I'll leave that there. And of course, we have kind of the usual slate of to-do items, but I don't know about you. I got my Prop 50 ballot in the mail over the weekend, and so it's election day now and every day until November 4th, while we try to get people to return those ballots and vote yes on Prop 50. So lots of opportunities for people to volunteer on that campaign. We have a Linktree link in our show notes where you can sign up to Phone Bank if you're not in California. You can sign up to Canvass if you are in California. Really fun canvassing. I'm going to plug it again. If you've never canvassed before because maybe you're intimidated about going into a swing district and having conversations with voters that you think may not agree with you, you know, this is the best way to, you know, like your introduction class to canvassing, because we're going to like-minded Democratic voters and just letting them know that this ballot has arrived, that there's an election happening, and what's at stake for Prop 50. And overwhelmingly, Democrats are supporting this. They just need that information. So the weather is lovely up and down the state. You can get out, get your steps in, bring some friends, and help us get Prop 50 passed.
Our problem is not so much that people oppose this, it's that people don't know about it. If they do know about it, they may not know that it's temporary, which I've heard repeatedly is the only stumbling block for people, is that they think we're getting rid of our independent redistricting forever, which we're not. We're not. It's
Right.
just until 2030, and then it comes right back. This is just to fight Trump. This is because Trump did it. We're doing it too. That's the only reason. But so when you talk to people about that, or you simply talk to people who are totally checked out, who've received that ballot in the mail, but are like ready to put it in the recycling and just go, wait. Like, if you're mad about Trump's ICE raids, if you're mad about the abuses of power, the National Guard in the city, vote in this election. They are connected. One thing is connected to the other. If we want to put a check on Trump's power, we must win the House next year. We can't win the House next year unless we win this proposition, this ballot measure. It's all connected. So it's one question on the ballot. It could not be easier. Fill in the yes bubble.
Yeah.
You
It's
don't
just the
even need a
one.
stamp, California. No stamp. Just mail the fucking thing back. No stamps. Come on.
We make it easy. Coming up soon, we've been talking about it. It's in 10 days now, October 18th, 10 days as we're recording this, 9 days as the show drops. October 18th is No King's Day. This is going to be the biggest national rally against the Trump regime that we have ever had. And we need to make sure it's that and even bigger, especially with all of the escalation of, these ICE raids and the National Guard being deployed to cities and, all of that. We need to stand up as a nation and show that this is not who we are. And I believe we're going to do it. I'm excited about it. But
I am so excited.
I'm imagining that most of our listeners are probably going to be there and show up. But if you haven't, if you're hearing about it for the first time right now, the link is in our show notes page again for you to sign up and join in.
Yeah, please do. And then I have one more election I want to talk about for a second, Steve, if I may, which is the Pennsylvania Supreme Court retention elections. Okay, I know everyone's like, oh my God, that sounds really boring, but this is really important. I think I talked about it last week, but I want to give you a specific thing you can do. So just to recap, Supreme Court, there are 3 liberal justices who are all up for retention elections. This is something they do in Pennsylvania, where basically every 10 years, I believe, you have to just vote to retain them on the court. So you're going to get this ballot, and all you have to do is vote yes, yes, and yes. But usually they just get retained. I think only one justice in Pennsylvania history has ever been not retained. But Republicans see an opening here because, not that many people know about this kind of election. They are spending millions of dollars to try to get these 3 liberal justices not retained, because then they can try to get conservatives on the court, and then they can steal the presidential election in 2028. Like, this is really important. So vote forward. I want to make sure I'm covering the address on the bottom here. These are my vote forward letters that I've been writing. You can go to votefwd.org and adopt 5 letters. You print them up, you write a couple of sentences on them, you mail them out. They're nonpartisan letters, so you can't write the names of the candidates or anything. Just a little message about why you vote. We're just trying to get awareness of this election up. If you know people in Pennsylvania, just send them a text. Please, we really cannot underestimate how much money Republicans are going to pour into this election to try to influence the outcome of the 2028 presidential election. So Pennsylvania, pay attention, talk to your friends and family, make sure you get everyone you know to vote yes, yes, yes on those judicial retentions. And if you can volunteer for Vote Forward, even 5 addresses, please help out.
Love it. Love our friends that Vote Forward too.
Great.
Those letters are really, really great. So we will have the link to that also in our show notes, all the links to all the action.
Yes.
I'm going to start off with my reason for hope and then let you finish, because we have so much hope coming at us, and I want Jess to finish it off. But my particular reason for hope this week is we had another Blue Wave California event, this time in Marin County up in San Rafael. Beautiful event on this house overlooking the bay, and it was music, and to me, like, being in community with folks, especially during these times, it's everything. Like no matter, I can't encourage people to get out and go to a group gathering, or, in this case, it was a fundraiser, but if it's an indivisible meeting in your area or whatever, get around people who care about what's happening and are doing something about it. It is so empowering. And so I got to meet a bunch of people in Northern California that I didn't know, see some old friends, and everyone is fired up about Prop 50. There were signs and volunteer opportunities for Prop 50 there, and they're fired up about the midterms. They understand how important it is to invest in the midterms now. You're going to talk about some of the candidates that are running, that have been announced, that are running for Congress. But what happens is when you invest in midterms early and we have a good fundraising advantage, we get good Democratic candidates stepping up to run, and good, stronger Republican candidates decide this may not be their time.
Right.
So
yeah.
To see all that really kind of coming to fruition and people really taking it seriously. We had Representative Huffman there talking about the stakes and how we can all make a difference. It's just, I love being around our peeps, and it gave me so much hope and just fueled me, for the next week that we have to walk through. So that's amazing. My reason for hope. What about you, Jess?
Oh, I've got a really good one, and it's fresh. It's fresh out of the oven. Today we're recording this on a Wednesday. Yesterday, there were elections in a few different places, and we had, again, one big, huge flip in Alaska. Not just one, actually. There were a few, but we flipped the, I've got this written down here, Fairbanks, Alaska. We flipped the Fairbanks, Alaska mayoral seat that has not been held by a Democrat in over 10 years. This is a district Trump won by about 11 points. The guy who was the mayor there was a hardcore anti-LGBTQ. And we had a woman named Mindy O'Neill ran, and she won. This is being treated as like an earthquake electorally. It's a really big deal. And then I'm hearing also, and I haven't seen as much information, that we also flipped 3 assembly seats in Alaska. So again, these little special election victories are so momentous and so important. They indicate that our midterms are going to be a rout. So don't give up. Just keep living for that moment. And we've got elections coming sooner as well that will be routes too.
Yeah. I just want to say one thing about that. I want to interject before I let you, because you have so much more to talk about. But it's important to note in like Alaska that that's not just Democrats showing up and Republicans not showing up. You don't get that kind of a flip, that kind of turnout, unless you have conservative voters also voting for those Democrats. So 100%. That's, that kind of goes to what we were talking about earlier today with this tide that I see happening right now. It's very encouraging. Anyway, please continue.
Very important for all of the momentum builds. But the other great news is that in Tennessee, there were elections, there were primary elections, and Afton Bain, who I'm not just saying this because she happens to be a subscriber to Chopwood Carry Water and has been for a while, but she is a fantastic state representative in Tennessee. She won the primary. So this is in Tennessee's 7th district. This is Mark Green's open seat. She's going to be running against a super MAGA. Now, this is a tough district for Democrats, but not inconceivable. Sure. And Afton is amazing. And she has been running on getting grocery prices down in her district, on helping with healthcare, on really district-focused things. And again, like you said, we just need some Republicans to cross the aisle. And if I've ever seen a moment where that could actually happen, it is now. So that election, I believe, is on December 2nd. So please pay attention to that. And then the final bit of electoral good news is that Justin Pearson, also of Tennessee, announced that he is going to run for Congress in Tennessee's 9th district. And I'm sure we all remember him as being one of the 3 Tennessee lawmakers who became really famous a year or two ago with Justin Jones and Gloria Johnson. And he's amazing. It's very exciting that he's running. And again, like the energy coming out of Tennessee, I love to see it. And just let's all see how we can help with these races.
He is awesome. What an incredible speaker. I got to hear him speak here in LA when he was at an event, and just barn burner, taking us to church. It's a different spelling, Pearson, but he's still my brother from another mother, and I'm excited to see him progress. He is a rising star. So
he's amazing.
That's really exciting.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's it.
Well,
that's
lots of hope, and I can't wait for everyone to hear the interview. It's like we're getting the band back together with our old friend Jenifer Fernandez Ancona. Jenifer Fernandez Ancona is the co-founder and chief strategy officer of Way to Win. Prior to that, she served as vice president at Women's Donor Network. She has a wide range of experience in communications, donor organizing, strategy development, grassroots organizing, multiracial coalition building. She was also, of course, previously the co-host of the Way to Win podcast. Let me do that again. She was also previously the co-host of the How We Win podcast, and is now co-host of Charting the Way Forward. Jen, it's great to be with you. We got the band back together.
Yes, so good. It's great to see you, and I'm happy to be here on your Practivist pod.
Yeah, exactly. It's been a while since we recorded together. Let me just start by checking in with you and your family. You and your husband, Dan Ancona, you do this work together, so you don't get a lot of breaks, but you do get to make a big impact together. How are you doing? How are you finding balance while navigating these difficult times that we're all working in?
Yeah, I think it's a constant effort to navigate and to have balance, but we're doing well. Like personally, we're definitely both really affected by the news every day and everything that's going on and all the work that we're doing. So, it's hard, but I think we try to take balance in the things we do together, like being in nature, hanging out with our kid Marco, who does a lot of sports, and he does running and sailing, and so there's a lot of chances to watch him and drive him places to do his sporting activities. But yeah, we're hanging in there. I think, like everyone else, feeling fine about our own lives, but feeling a lot of pain and empathy for people who are really suffering right now, and just following the news which we have to do obviously for our jobs. It's a challenge, it's a whole strategy that I think you have to take in just taking in what's happening right now.
Yeah. And finding how to parse out like what you take into, I mean, like you said, it's our jobs, but even for me, even doing a weekly podcast where we talk about the news, I don't inundate myself with it. I really, have times when I just catch up on what I need to catch up on, but I don't like, Trump v1, it was just MSNBC on a loop 24/7. And, we don't really do that to ourselves anymore. But, I was thinking about when we were doing How We Win together, when we were doing that podcast together, Biden was our president. And there was obviously, it was really different. We would talk about news of the week, but there was so much less chaos, obviously. But also like less engagement overall by people. And I was reflecting on this, knowing that you were going to come on the show, thinking about a lot of the work we were doing together on that show was to try to keep people engaged while not burning them out, but letting them know how important it is to do this work as a citizen all the time and not just to tune out. And, we kind of saw some of the repercussions of that in the last election. So, we're in a really different place. I'm curious how you're looking at that shift now in people tuning in and taking action.
Yeah, I think that's really a good point to reflect back on. Because I do recall a lot of what we were trying to do was talk to people about the things that Biden was doing that were good, and reminding people that elections have consequences. Look, we elected this government and look what they're actually doing, but no one knows about it. When we looked at the polling, it would always be like, oh, nobody knows that these things have passed, or nobody is actually, people think that they can just relax because it's not as chaotic and crazy. So I do agree with you there that that's really true. And now I feel like we have maybe the opposite problem where there's more, it's more chaotic and there's more interest probably in what's going on, but it's negative and harmful. It's like we used to say, it's so hard to get people to pay attention to good news because people are more likely to pay attention to bad news,
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like there's engagement for sure. I mean, we've seen record, protests. We've seen people, just regular everyday people, not even activists, stepping up and doing things and pushing back on ICE and pushing back on the militarization and occupation of DC and other cities. And I think that's inspiring. And I do feel like it's an ongoing struggle to get people to tune in and not just tune out. That's really been a theme of what we've been trying to do. And some of our work at Way to Win this past year is just like remind people that we actually do have power together as a group, as a collective, that we're not just, it's not just about electoral politics and we lost and so everything is doomed, but like we actually have power as a collective. So we started this Instagram page, the 3.5%, which is based off of the Erica Chenoweth study about, when around the world there's authoritarian regimes, if at least 3.5% of the population is actively resisting and engaged, on a regular basis, like there's a way to change things. Like that amount of people is enough momentum to actually fight back against that kind of regime. So that's been one way that we've been trying to bring this like hope core to the current situation, and get people taking action. So the big protests coming up is part of that, the No Kings protest, but also some of the economic actions that we've been pushing, like people canceling Disney and Hulu, which we did a bunch of work on when Jimmy Kimmel was fired, and then talking about some of the other boycotts like T-Mobile, et cetera. So I think it's just an ongoing struggle. Like it's definitely, I think the vibe is definitely people want to resist, but they often don't know what to do. And people also want to pay attention, but they don't exactly know, who to listen to or who to trust, et cetera.
Yeah. I mean, the paying attention thing, when so much is being thrown at them, at us, at all of us, is really, really challenging. And really great points too. It's like, sadly, we know that the fear and the hate and all the scary stuff gets the most attention, but we also know that that's what represses people and keeps them from taking action too, because they tend to just hide under the covers instead of getting out there and understanding that they have a role to play and that they have agency. So, obviously, we are the opposition party. We are in opposition. We are in resistance. We need to fight back. That is all true and necessary. But we also, need to give people something to hope for, something to aspire to, and show what we're going to do when we get back in power. And in many ways, I think some of what we didn't do effectively, at least before this, that caused people to either vote for Trump or not vote at all, those drop-off Dems. So having said all of that, first of all, everyone, I will put a link to the Instagram page in our show notes too, because I subscribe to it and it's great. And
great.
I don't know, maybe on the 18th we'll hit that 3.5%. I think it's going to be a really big rally. That would be amazing. But you just had Way to Win, I should say, had an event in DC called Persuasion 2025, where you had just like the top messaging and communication experts sharing their insights on, I would assume, pretty much exactly what we've just been talking about. So what are the key takeaways from that event that you can share with us?
Yeah, well, the purpose of the event was to gather some of the smartest people that we know, the strategists, the thinkers, the activists. Obviously it was just a subset, but people who are really trying to forge a different path forward coming out of the loss of 2024, because it was such a catastrophic loss. Like, we can't deny that. I think the loss in 2016 was devastating to create the first Trump presidency, but to lose again to Trump in 2024, I think it really does kind of break up the question of the party of, like, what are we doing? Because obviously what we're doing isn't working. And there's a lot of theories that came out of the election right away that got a lot of media attention, that focused a lot on, it was the groups, they were too far left, and they pushed Kamala too far left. And that's why the party is, where it is, because moderates don't like it. They're leaving the party. They chose Trump. And that is one theory, but there's other theories too. And so we wanted to bring people together to kind of make that point and say, well, what are the lessons that we need to learn going out of 2024's loss? And how do we actually rebuild the Democratic Party in a different way? Because we just can't keep doing the same thing that we have been doing. And this push to, like, a more centrist path, like, we need to take more centrist positions on issues, or we need to moderate on cultural issues, because that's where people are, feels like a strategy that has already been tried. In many ways, it feels like the strategy that was tried in 2024. And so, we're trying to put out a different, set of theories and strategies. So what were the takeaways? I think one big thing is that we, as a party, we have to embody how, like, being fighters and actually standing for something that we believe in, and not just putting our finger to the wind and seeing where people are and then trying to find that. That was a really big message that Senator Van Hollen spoke about, because he obviously took a lot of heat for going down to El Salvador and making a big issue about immigration at a time when the party was telling him, you really shouldn't do that. So he was saying, like, we have to fight for what we believe in, and I believe this, and I'm going to fight for it, whether or not a poll tells me it was right or not. So there was a fair amount of, talking about that, like what polling tells you and the sort of failures of that. Obviously, polling is an important tool, but it shouldn't be driving, like, what you're focused on. It shouldn't be driving, like, the question of what you're doing. It can be a helpful tool to help you figure out, but too often it's actually driving the decisions about what to talk about and what to try to make salient. And that there's a feeling that, like, we can't control what is salient for voters. When voters are in the world, voters are looking at their phones, voters are seeing what's happening. We can't pretend that's not there and try to tell them, oh, it's just about the price of eggs, when what they actually are seeing every day is, like, this authoritarian threat and people being kidnapped off the streets and cities being invaded. We have to have a story about that too, because we can't control what they see as salient. So we talked about that. There was also,
if you remember anything from our time together doing the podcast, how I have a very tenuous relationship with polling. There are a few pollsters that I do appreciate, and it has its place, but in general, not a big fan of polling.
Yeah, we use polling a lot. It can be really useful, as I said, to, like, figure out how to persuade people, but it's not useful for figuring out, like, what your agenda is or what you should focus on,
or telling candidates what they should be saying, when what they should be saying should be organic to why they are actually running for office. Exactly.
I think that was another point that came out, was, like, the importance of authenticity in our candidates. We had a couple different candidates, Kat Abu-Ghazala, who is running in Illinois, and she talked about how different consultants were asking her, well, how can you teach people to be authentic or something? And she was like, you can't teach it. You just have to do it.
Well, you got to start with believing in something and then being willing to communicate that thing that you believe in to other people. I think that's how you start.
Totally. Graham Plattner, who is the
Yeah.
candidate out of Maine for Senate,
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
incredible. He was really,
Talk
really
about
impressive.
authentic. Yeah, he's
I
great.
know. And he said that too. He was like, people ask me like, well, how do you figure out how to talk to rural voters? And he was like, I don't have to figure it out. Like, I live in a town of 1,000 people. I know how to talk to them, you know? So there,
Yeah.
that idea of kind of just being yourself and who you are. I also really liked his points about the party. Like, we can run against the party because we have to sort of be real about what's happening and some of the leadership, et cetera. But he's like, he said, I'm running as a Democrat because I'm a Democrat. I'm not going to be an independent just because I think that that's going to make my electoral prospects better. Again, that idea of like standing for what you believe in.
Yeah.
There, I was going to say you would have well, we're putting up some of the clips so on our Blue Sky account, so you can see some of the sessions. If you want to go back and watch the video, and one of them was with Anat, our friend Anat Shankar
Mm-hmm.
Osorio, and
Yep.
Sarah Longwell from the Bulwark. So these two very different people in terms of how they kind of approach the world, because Sarah's obviously a Republican who's now a never Trumper, and Anat is like, you know, a hardcore progressive. So that was really interesting, and I think that was probably my favorite. So it was everybody said that was their favorite session, because you could really feel the tension that is needed to kind of have these debates across the coalition, because they both
Yeah.
want the same things in a big picture way, but hearing their different perspectives and seeing them bounce off of each other was interesting. You know, and
I
one of
know
Anat's biggest.
Anat wears her heart right on her sleeve, like,
Yeah.
too. Like I'm sure she doesn't have a poker face for when she's doesn't agree or isn't happy with things. So.
Oh yeah, no, that was that. There was that. But Sarah was talking a lot. I mean, I didn't agree with a lot of what she said, but she was talking a lot about sort of the style, you know, and we use words that are too big. We talk way too complicated. Like, we're not talking to people about we're not talking to them in a way that they can hear us. So, you know, I think we have
Yeah.
to listen to that.
Yeah.
She was saying like some of the candidates who she disagrees with the most on policy, like AOC or Mamdani, you know, she does not agree with anything they're saying in terms of the substance, but she did agree that they're like fighting for people. They're talking in regular language. They're going about it in the right way in terms of people feel they care about them. It is probably back to that authenticity question, right?
Yeah.
People see candidates like that and they're like, well, I get it. I get her. She gets me, or he gets me. And some of the policy disagreements can fade away. So that was interesting.
Very interesting. Very erudite and insightful.
Yeah, and then we had a really really interesting panel with Kat on Gaza politics too, and that was really interesting because you know, it's not typically brought up in a lot of these democratic political spaces, and we wanted to talk about, you know, the way that it has shifted, the way that public opinion has shifted, how kind of it was handled in 2024, and how we have to think about it differently. So that was another, I think, takeaway.
Yeah. Fascinating. Well, I'm looking forward to pouring through the Blue Sky account and watching the clips from it, because you really did coalesce the top messaging and communication experts, and I think you had Mehdi on there too, on a panel too.
Yeah, Mehdi. Oh, I forgot kind of the biggest thing now. Takeaway, which is
burying the lead.
Yeah.
Like any good communicator, you're burying the lead.
No, but it was a really big theme around part of what we have to do is, like, part of our theory is that not that people just that everything went too far left and people left the party for that reason. I mean, a little bit. It wasn't the main reason, because everything that we saw in all the research that we were doing is it's like the bigger issues are, number one, the affordability crisis on top of an inequality crisis already. So we like to cite this Rand study. Rand Corporation did a study over the past 50 years and found that the bottom 90% of Americans have lost $79 trillion in wealth to the top 0.01% since 1975. That is fundamental, you know, and that affects how people feel and their precarity. So when there is an affordability crisis on top of an inequality crisis, it is killing people, and it is making them more susceptible to some of the narratives that we saw Trump push in the election, and that they're still
Yeah.
pushing now. And then the second part is, which you know very well, is the media environment is so fractured and skewed, and the right wing has so dominated that they just can amplify all of those narratives so much more easily than we can kind of knock them down. And then the third piece was, you know, we have seen in our time since Trump got elected that when the movement energy of like grassroots and, you know, people out there is aligned with the top of the party, we were winning, and we win big victories. Like we saw that in 2020 with the George Floyd movement. We saw that in 2022 with the pushback to the overturning of Roe v. Wade, and in 2024 those forces were at odds. It was really about the war in Gaza and the humanitarian crisis, and that was at odds with the party. And so it's just a lesson that I think we have to realize that's part of why we're in this, and how we have to figure out how to get out. Again, it goes to candidates who can be authentic, candidates who can actually tap into some of this movement energy. So just that economic piece was also a really big takeaway. A lot of different speakers talked about that. You know, because, and one of the things that Terrence Woodbury said, who's brilliant from Hit Strategies, was the culture war is an economic war. Like they want you to think it's a culture war, but the reason why the things they did worked was because they said immigrants are taking your Black jobs. Like that's an economic argument. Or trans people are using your taxpayer money for operations. That's an economic kind of bottom line, right? So I think just understanding the way that the culture war like fits in with the economic question, and not trying to separate them, because often you'll hear Democrats say like, oh, we just have to focus on kitchen table issues. But if we just focus on kitchen table issues, we're kind of missing that their whole economic argument is very much steeped in these culture issues.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's been the strategy forever, is pit us against each other, you know, and let us like fight each other and blame each other while they're, you know, again, it's not a left-right issue. It's a top-bottom issue. But to your point overall too, which I really agree with, is, I feel like we got stuck in the facts of the Biden administration. And you and I talked about it when we were doing the podcast. You kind of brought it up at the beginning of this. Like, he passed some incredible legislation. We were coming out of COVID with, you know, this and all the wreckage that Trump had done in his term, and he was pulling us out. Job market was doing better. Inflation was doing better. Like, all the numbers, the fundamentals look great on a chart, but that doesn't translate into how people were actually feeling about it. And Trump went out there with this message of, you know, everyone's struggling, the country's gone to shit, and, you know, you can't pay your bills and everything's too expensive, and I'm going to raise prices on day one. And I think we were a little afraid to counter that, to give credence to that message, I should say. So instead, we talked a lot about building the middle class. We talked about, you know, making home ownership affordable for people, and all good things to talk about. But for this giant swath of folks, like, owning a home is so far out of reach, so far out of their mind, they really are struggling day in and day out. So I think it's a big lesson.
It's real. For sure. Yeah. We saw that in the research we did with the people who didn't vote in 24, the ones who had like voted for Biden in 2020 and then didn't vote in 24. One of the things was, when we asked them, like, what are the top reasons that didn't resonate with you? One of them, the top ones, was like, there wasn't anything about poverty or inequality, like these bigger economic structural issues. It was all about middle class and home buying. And that it feels very surface when you're dealing with this like 79 trillion being sucked out of the entire population. You know, it's like that was like a miss. And probably Biden wanted to, you know, talk about the good things he was doing. That felt clear. Like, he kept wanting to say, no, but I've done this and I've done this, but people weren't feeling it. And there was just such a disconnect, and there wasn't a good narrative to tell people, why their lives feel hard. And Trump gave them that narrative very clearly.
Yeah. The other piece, the kind of how we fix it, one of the how we fix it pieces is investment in alternative media, and in the place where you and I live and breathe. And I'm fond of reminding people that it wasn't that Trump just went on some right-wing podcasts, but that Republicans had been investing in these influencers and building up their profiles for years and years. Out of the top 400 podcasts right now, it still remains that 300 of them are right-wing podcasts. So they absolutely own this field, but we're waking up to it. And there is now some investment, which is better than none, in this media space. Are you seeing that? Are you seeing progress there? Where do we need to do more?
Yeah, there's a lot of progress just in the sense that at least there's more awareness and people know that it's an issue. Whereas when we were working on it in the last couple of years, it was like a struggle just to explain to people what was going on. So I think there's a lot of progress in that sense that people know it's a problem. I think there's still a lot more to do, but there has been some movement and there has been some investment definitely in new things. I just think it's the culture side of things that we have a lot more work to do still. There's been a lot of investment in some things taking off in more of the political media space, but on the cultural side, we're still pretty outmatched. So I think that's where we need to put more energy and effort.
And when you say that cultural side, you're talking about not necessarily political shows, but just, other kind of content creators and influencers that may be blue-coded or just share. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Like, the whole right-wing ecosystem goes from like totally subliminal to coded to hard extreme. And so I think if we want to try to build out something similar, we do have like a fair number of things that are like Midas Touch is like pretty big podcast. That's hard political. You have Crooked and the Pod Save America. That's like hard political. Courier. It's like political news. All of those channels is like more political. And we're still, I don't think we have built out as much on either things that are coded as blue or left or things that are just totally subliminal and like not real. People are not realizing that that's what it is. So
was there any subliminal stuff in Taylor Swift's new record? I haven't listened to it yet. But,
are you serious?
I like to think
you haven't listened to it? Are you joking? Are you trying to make me angry? No, I'm kidding.
No, I know how you feel about it. I'm sorry I brought it up. Sorry I brought it up. I listened to a little bit.
There's always subliminal stuff in Taylor. Yes.
There is.
For sure.
All right. I will listen to it, but before I do, I want to ask you the last question we ask on the Practivist pod, which is also the last question that we used to ask folks on how we win. And that's what's giving you hope right now. Yeah.
Thanks. I love this question. I do, like I mentioned, I think seeing regular people, like people who are not necessarily activists or part of organizations or et cetera, just standing up and saying no to the tyranny. I feel like Americans, fundamentally, it's probably in our DNA. We don't like tyranny. Like, we tried to escape it. And so I do think, I think that continues to give me hope when I see like all the stuff in Portland, with Trump bringing the military in, but then the videos that I've been seeing of like all of this just like comedy, just like people dressed up as like animals, like people like on with bagpipes, like playing Star Wars songs, like around the occupation. I think it's that creativity that it makes me hopeful right now. The creativity of people to push back, and not in a violent way, but in kind of a way that's in our power and in our values. I really loved seeing some of that in DC when the occupation first started, and you saw people just like chasing plainclothes ICE agents out and just shaming them and videoing it. I mean, I just think it's so brave, for people to do that. And that just continues to give me hope. And I think that's what we need more of. Everyone needs to do more to put sand in the gears on what's happening right now. And whenever I see people doing that to put sand in the gears, that's what gives me a lot of hope.
Me too. I love that. They had a violent mob that stormed the Capitol. We've got flash mobs of dancers that play music and storm around, and it's a really good. It really gives me a lot of hope too. This was so fun. I miss you. This was like old times, like having these conversations, and it was great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us on the Practivist Pod.
Thank you so much, Steve. It's great to be here.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Don't forget that all of the links to our actions are in our show notes, so don't just listen. Click those links, take action with us. Please do subscribe, rate, and review our show on Apple or YouTube or wherever you're finding us, and share us with your friends and family. Let's build this Practivist community together. If you are able to support our show on Substack, we would be very grateful for that, and you'll get the coveted ad-free version of our show. We will be back next week with more Practivist Pod, so until then, remember, hope is in action.